Rejoice, for here it is. The last non-sailing video, stupid hair trying to escape, the last non-sailing video for quite a while. Sorry there's not been sailing videos that much. I've been doing other things. The army race video will be out at some point. It's on Patreon. I just can't release it yet for reasons. So this week we meet Jack, because sailing is also about the people, something I have learnt sort of to my detriment, because now I can't leave the people. Jack's cool, and I'm in an incredibly privileged position to be able to show Jack off, really, because he's bloody awesome, and get his stories on tape, because they deserve to be shared. So basically we're just going to sit and we're going to talk to Jack today. We're going to talk about his just randomly writing 3 books on Astro navigation just out of nowhere, because he didn't like the ones that were around, and get some of his stories about being in the Navy, which is fun. Yeah, so... Oh, and he owes the king... No, the king owes it... blah, 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 blah. The king owes him money as well. So, yeah. Meet Jack. So, Jack, I think we'd better start with how we actually met, hadn't we? On the infamous J pontoon, the Naughty Boys Club.
Well, you're an honorary member of J Pontoon because you sailed in here. It's the best pontoon in the marina, the most sociable, and you fitted in straight away.
Yeah, well, you would say that it's the best pontoon because you're on it, aren't you?
Yeah, well, we're all alcoholics and we're the reprobates, and you really normally have to have a visa to come here, but you just sailed in and bumbled your way in.
You just let me off for that. So I thought I'd try and do a video for the simple reason, well, one, you're pretty bloody awesome, and you've got loads of stories to tell, because I think you've had a pretty interesting life, haven't you?
I've had an interesting life, but I wouldn't say I'm awesome. I'm awful, probably.
Oh yeah, I got that mixed up, didn't I?
Yeah.
So I heard your name when Dan told me that there's a chap called Jack who he's on that boat over there. What's your boat? What is this boat?
This boat is called the Curlew.
And it's a what?
It's a westerly consort duo.
Western consort duo.
It's a duo because it's got this lovely pilot house where we can look round and eye everybody up as they go past.
That's it, so you can look out and nosy at who's coming down the pontoon.
Yeah,
and
and either
basically
invite them on for a coffee or duck down below.
Yeah.
But it's nice.
I wondered why every time I walked past I seen a little red hat diving down below.
It's a nice sociable boat and it fits in with this sociable J pontoon.
Definitely. So, you wrote some books. Dan said, I've got a book on astro navigation.
Yeah.
Because he struggled to understand it, I think he was saying. And he said, and then Jack came round and said, I've got a leaflet. I've wrote a little leaflet about astro navigation. And you handed in this big book. So, why did you write it? Let's start with that.
Well,
Oh, what is it first? And why did you write it?
okay, well, shall I show you the book first of all? There's the book, Astro Navigation Demystified, and it's that thick. And I'll tell you all about it. Well, I was in the Navy for 25 years. I joined as a boy seaman, 2nd class, the lowest rank in the Navy. And through one way or another, I don't understand why, because I was pretty much a rebel and a reprobate, I managed to work my way up through the ranks to Lieutenant Commander.
Right.
And when I did my officer training, I was taught astro navigation. Because in those days, that's the only way we navigated. We didn't have GPS when I was in the Navy. So I learnt astro navigation, and I've found it a fascinating subject. I really did, because I've always been interested in maths, and I became fascinated with this subject, and I enjoyed navigating around the oceans with using astro navigation. And when I left the Navy, I became a teacher, and I taught maths, and I found that astro navigation gave me an excellent tool for demonstrating the application of maths through the geometry and trigonometry, angles of stars and altitudes and bearings and azimuths, and it helped me teach geometry and trigonometry, and the kids loved it.
Was that high school kids, I imagine?
Yeah. And then I started teaching astronavigation in colleges, and then eventually I ran a course which in a college for the Open University. But the problem I found was I couldn't find a useful course book to use for my students. The ones I found were written by people who tried to make the subject of astronavigation mystical and not complicated, and people were frightened of it. And I wanted my pupils, my students rather, to enjoy it and find it wasn't so complicated. So I thought, well, I can't find a decent textbook. I'll write my own, and hence this book, Astronavigation. That's why I chose this title, Astronavigation Demystified, to try and demystify it. And it's I got it published. I started off publishing it myself, and then I found that I could get it published through Amazon, where they did all the work, printing, publishing, advertising, and I sell my books through Amazon, and it brings in a little bit of extra income, pays for the mooring fees, or
tops up the old pension, does it?
Yeah,
keeps you in port and rum.
Yeah, buys a few bottles of rum too.
I know, I've drank some of them.
So that's really how it came about, and then people wrote, or in the reviews they wrote about the book, they said they'd like to know about the astronomy, about the stars. I thought, well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? So of course they want to know. So I thought, well, I'll write a book on the astronomy. So hence I wrote this book, The Astronomy of Astronavigation.
Just casually thought, I know, I'll just write another book.
And obviously I had to do a bit of research, as well as my own background memory. And then they wanted to know about the maths. I haven't got the maths one here. I wrote a book. Oh yes, excuse me, I'll just grab it. It's here, I can see it. So then they wanted to know about the maths, the mathematics behind it. And again, I couldn't find a useful textbook, so I wrote my own, and here we are. Applying mathematics to astronavigation. Applying mathematics to astronavigation. So that was the 3 books I wrote, and I'm in the process of revising them at the moment, especially the Astro Demystified.
So when you were 15 and you were sort of shoved into the army,
Navy.
Navy. Yeah, sorry. And you were shoved into the Navy, sort of thing. Could you imagine as a 15-year-old that in however many years' time you'd have been writing 3 books on astronavigation and all the rest of it?
No, because as I said, my rank was lower than the ship's cap, and I loved it because typical story, a romantic story. 15 years old, ran away to sea, broke my mother's heart, pleased my father.
It's usually the way it goes.
Yeah, and I loved it. It changed my life. It dare I say it made a man of me at 15, and it was a pretty tough life, but it taught me discipline, self-discipline, how to look after myself. And I'm not talking about looking after myself fisticuffs wise, keeping yourself clean, keeping your clothes clean, taking care of yourself.
I was going to say, this is definitely the cleanest boat on J Pontoon, without a doubt, and some of them don't even get used.
And we did things like climbing. They had the original HMS Ganges was a sailing ship, and then they moved it ashore and made a shore base of it at Shotley in Suffolk, and they took the mast from the old sailing ship and erected it ashore. And then as part of our training, every morning 6 o'clock, before we could get any breakfast, we had to go up the mast, go up the ratlins of one side, up over the Devil's Elbow and down the other side. And then some of us, being a bit stupid, I wouldn't say brave, stupid.
Smart asses.
Yeah, we used to climb to the top and stand up on the button at the very top of the mast. And some boys got chosen for the ceremonial occasions. I didn't, because I used to mess around too much. I stood up then. I used to send semaphore messages to the ships in Harwich Harbour. That's the days when we had a navy, and we had destroyers and minesweepers in Harwich Harbour. And as a bet, I stood up there and sent a semaphore signal, because I was being trained as a boy signalman, and that was a bet, and I won the bet. I think it was about 2 bob in those days, about, not even worth 20p now.
Did you get the money paid to you
Which money?
from that bet?
Yes.
Right, so you've done better there than you did off King Charles then, didn't you?
Oh. Am I allowed to mention that?
Of course you are, he's the king. Yeah.
Yeah, but I might get into trouble. All right, be brave, jump in.
So what was...
I'll probably be beheaded in the Tower of London for saying this.
So what was you served with then Prince Charles, or
Yeah,
was it
I
HMS Jupiter?
Yeah, here's a pic. Or can I show you this picture?
Sure it was.
That's HMS Jupiter, and I served on HMS Jupiter with Prince Charles.
I'll get some shots of them after as well.
Okay. And we were in the Pacific, and when he went ashore, his bodyguard, he had a police bodyguard assigned to him, who used to meet the ship when it came into any port. Well, we were trying to think, it was either Tonga or Samoa in the Pacific. Well, when Prince Charles went ashore to do some shopping, the bodyguard had to go with him. But of course, as you know, royalty don't carry money, so the bodyguard had to, if he wanted to buy some, cough up the money. Well, on this occasion, I got on well with the bodyguard. He's a great friend of mine. I can't remember his name though, even though he's a great friend. I was already ashore, and he came back and said, "Hey Jack, you want to come along?" So I towed along, because when Prince Charles was on board, we called him Charles because he had to be one of the wardroom officers, and he was my second officer watch, and I got on well with him, and so I went along, tagged along. I think it was Tonga, and Prince Charles bought something, asked the bodyguard for the money. He didn't have enough, so the bodyguard turned to me and said, "Hey Jack, you got any money?" So I coughed up, and trying to remember, I think the currency in Tonga was a panga, and it was based on the Australian dollar, and it's equivalent to about what I handed over, about equivalent to $3 Australian. And so anyway, I thought no more about it, and then years later I thought, well, I never got that money back. And then when Prince Charles became king, I thought, well, the king owes me money. and then my pals pointed out, well, how long ago was that? They pointed out, well, with interest, he owes you a few £1,000.
Yeah, probably.
I said, well, a night would probably be all right.
Yeah,
And,
why not?
Yeah, but
Sir Jack.
But yeah, can you imagine it? But I haven't had them. They all want me to write. But I don't know.
So do I. I think if you wrote to him, I think you get a letter back with a 20 quid note in it or something. Probably a new one with his mush on it.
Yeah, but I think what I think will happen is some secretary will get say, "Who's this cheeky person?" and chuck it in the bin. I'll never get to King Charles.
I think so. Greg off the pontoon as well mentioned that after the Queen passed away, they were doing like a film about her life and stuff like that. And one of the clips was her going on to HMS Jupiter to meet Prince Charles, wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it myself.
No.
I've only what Greg told me, but they saw me on there.
But apparently you were stood there, bald as brass, next to Prince Charles while the Queen went on.
Well, I mean, dare I say it, when we were on the ship, we were, in the water, and we were pals. And he was called Charles. We called him Charles. We didn't call him Sir or Your Majesty or anything. That was on the ship. Be slightly different now if I met him.
Yeah, probably.
I can see I'm gonna end up in the Tower of London having my head chopped off for this.
It'll be worth it though, won't it?
Oh, for you, yeah.
Am I right in thinking that Dan has now got the army using these books for
Well,
training
so he
their
told me
astro navigation?
the army sailing team or school, I don't know what they have. The instructor, I don't know if Dan's the instructor or there's somebody above him, use a textbook, had a textbook, and Dan showed, I think it's the senior officer, whoever it was, my book, and he decided to change the course book for the army sailing course by using my book. So I'm pretty chuffed with that.
So they're still training astro navigation. Do you still see the merit in learning astro navigation, like in modern days with GPS and all the rest of it?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially these days with what's going on with Ukraine and let me explain why, it'd be easier. People have got used to GPS and they can drive their cars using sat-nav, sail their boats around the world using GPS, don't have to worry about astro navigation, which that's old-fashioned. That's what they used in the days of the Ark, in Nelson's day. And but this is the reason I teach it and try to keep it alive. You can lose the GPS or any other satellite navigation system in a second for various reasons. Firstly, natural. You have sunspots rather, which can wipe out electricity grids worldwide. They can wipe out communications networks such as the internet. They can wipe out electronic navigation systems such as GPS. They can damage the satellites that the GPS depends on. And you can lose it in a second naturally like that. Secondly, people can jam the signals, the GPS signals, and it does happen. Certain countries who might not be friendly, I won't mention any, I don't want to be shot at dawn or anything. Certain countries who aren't very friendly towards us can have been known to jam the GPS, and worse still, to hack into it, so it gives you the false position. And an example of that, two American warships in the Baltic found they were 80 miles away from where the GPS was telling them they were, because some anti-American country had decided to hack into the GPS, and that can happen all the time. So you could lose it in a second. They could just wipe it out if they wanted to through jamming. And also another more obvious reason, you have a GPS system on your boat, which depends on electricity. You might have a complete breakdown. You might have a flood, lose electricity, lose your GPS equipment might just get damaged. Your mast might come down. You lose your aerial. So for any reason, you could just have equipment failure. So what do you do if you're sailing along the coast? Fine, you can use landmarks as we always traditionally have to navigate by, coastal navigation wise. But if you're out in the ocean and there's no land, what have you got? What can you see? All you can see are what we call the celestial bodies: the stars, the planet, the moon and the sun. So those are the only things we've got, so we can navigate by those, and that's where astronavigation comes in. You navigate by the stars or the moon or the planets or the sun, and so they can't be jammed, they can't be hacked into, so they'll always be there. So that's why I think it's essential to learn astronavigation. Anybody who wants to sail a boat across the ocean out of sight of land should equip themselves with knowledge of astronavigation and have a sextant and learn how to use it.
Well, I've been pretty lucky because you've actually given me copies of your books, so that'll give me something to learn, and you've just convinced me that I need to, definitely.
Right.
So
Okay.
that'll be fun. Do you want to give us a rundown of, like, in the very basics of what do you mean by celestial navigation, or at the very simplest level for idiots like me?
You're not an idiot by any means. And, well, if I was to teach it to you, the book is that thick. And when I taught the course, it lasted 6 months. So, and I go on the Move Fleet, which is a tall ship that sails from here. And the skipper, Jez, asked me to give talks to his passengers about astro navigation. And he gives me 3 minutes to do it. So
Right. So,
this
what's
is,
your 3-minute pitch?
okay, so if you're sailing across the ocean, you keep a dead reckoning track of where you are. So you should know for your dead reckoning position or your approximate position, or if you update that with tides and winds, your estimated position. So you should know your estimated position, but that won't be your true position. You can work out from tables, or you can work it out using spherical trigonometry, which is a method I prefer. You can work out the position, what the altitude of the body, whether it's the sun or one of the other bodies, what the altitude and the azimuth should be. That is, when I say azimuth, that's the direction from north all the way around 360 degrees. It's not quite as simple as that, but that'll do for now. So that will calculate the azimuth and the altitude of the body from your estimated position. But that's not your true position. Where you are in the boat is your true position. So if you measure using a sextant the altitude and use a compass to measure the azimuth of the body, that would be the correct altitude and azimuth for the true position. So by a bit of jiggery pokery, I'm going to have to miss a bit out here. Basically, what you do is you find the difference between the position calculated for the estimated position and your position of the true position where you are, and find a difference in distance and azimuth. So it'll be in the direction of the sun. So either if the azimuth is smaller, you'll be further away than the estimated position. If it's greater, then you'll be closer. And so then you can work out which direction we are from the estimated position. And then by calculating the azimuth, you know what direction to go in. That's about as simple as I can make it without giving you a 6-month course.
I might take a 6-month. If I could afford the birthing fees, I'd have a 6-month course off you. So, joining the Navy at 15.
Yeah.
What year was that? We're going to give away your age now.
1954.
1954.
Before you were even a glimmer in your parents' eyes. Probably
my parents didn't. My
probably
parents
your parents
didn't
weren't
exist.
even alive.
No, they weren't.
God.
That was 10 years before. 10 years before my mum existed, and 9 years before my dad existed. So you joined at 15. So that was 1954.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. So would you have seen any action then in while you were in the Navy?
Yeah, at a pretty young age. At 16, I was sent to my first ship, which was a cruiser in the Far East. And now, in those days, you didn't just have trips, you did a 2-year commission. So I went on the ship when I was 16 and left when I was 18.
Bloody hell.
And during the time of the Suez Crisis, which I think was around about 1956, something like that, around about then, when France and Great Britain decided to take over the Suez Canal from the Egyptians, it caused a bit of a conflict, and Israel was involved as well. And So we were sent, my cruise, even though it was in the Far East, we were sent to patrol the Red Sea to make sure British merchant ships were safe. And when we were up there, patrolling the Red Sea, we had a message. It came through a radio message saying that an Egyptian warship was harrying, I think that's the right word, British merchant ships trying to escape from the Suez Canal. So we were told to go and investigate. Now, to cut a long story short, it was a very long story, we came up alongside the Egyptian destroyer in the dark and came up alongside them, and as a young boy signalman, my job was to man the searchlight. We had a 16-inch signal lamp that could turn into a searchlight. So my job was to man that. So we came up alongside the ship, and the Egyptian ship, and the captain said, illuminate. So I turned the searchlight on, and everybody thought, well, they'll use their common sense, great big cruiser alongside, they'll surrender. The captain said, surrender. But they were braver than that. They opened fired on us.
Bloody hell.
And the only thing they could shoot at, the only thing they could see was the searchlight. And who was standing behind the searchlight? And as a 16-year-old kid, I said, grief.
I bet you didn't say grief, I bet you said something else.
Something like that. And I thought, here I am, standing on a searchlight with a destroyer with 4-inch guns firing at me. And I'm the target, using me for target practice. So I said a few prayers, and fortunately their guns were put out of action before they could shoot me. I could see the tracers going overhead.
Bloody hell.
And they're Orlicans. But but unfortunately, they aimed too low. People down below got killed.
Oh, bloody hell.
But I came out unscathed. So that was, and then after that there were various incidents where we were attacked by Egyptian gunboats, torpedo boats, and so we had to try and evade them. And we even got attacked by an Israeli jet, because it mistook us for an Egyptian ship.
Right.
And it fired at us. And the ship behind us, what's the name of Modeste, HMS Modeste, got hold of it. But going back to the Egyptian destroyer, the name of the ship was, the Egyptian ship was Domiat, Domiat, and it was an ex-Royal Navy ship, World War II ship,
Right.
called HMS Nith, Nith, and it sunk just off the Gulf of Aqaba, near where, what's the modern holiday resort there, Sharm el Sheikh.
Yeah.
It's just, when I was there it was just desert, but now it's a big holiday resort.
Right.
So it's just off there in 30 metres of water. Now, at the time when you're young, you don't think about, we've been in action. But as you get older, you think about it, and you think about those people. They had mothers and daughters and wives and sons and parents, and it plays on your mind a bit. So I've got a good friend called Greg Newcomb, who used to run a diving company. He wants to take me out there so we can not dive on it. I'm a bit old to dive to 30 metres now. I used to be a diver, but I'm too old to dive to that depth now. So he's talking about getting what do you call them, these ROV to go down and film it, because you're not allowed to dive on it anyway, because it's a war grave.
Yeah.
And I just want to pay my last respects. That's all,
Yeah.
to
Oh,
those
that's
people.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice.
So, and there were other incidents of action in the Persian Gulf on another ship. We were chasing slave trading dhows, which ferrying slaves
Right.
to sell to Oman, as it was in those days, and gun smugglers, and lots of little things. I've never that was the only ship to ship action, but the others were just little escapades where we got fired at, or we fired at them, one or the other.
So that's the sort of, I suppose, well, it's not sort of the darker side of the Navy. Maybe it's not really a darker side, is it? That's the sort of that's the meat and gravy of
that's
the
why
job,
you have
sort
a
of.
Navy.
But
Yeah.
there was another side, wasn't there? I think you've got one or two stories of other escapades that might have been off the ship once or twice.
What have you been hearing about me?
Well, I did hear something about a bicycle at one point.
Oh, all right. I was on a ship. I think I was about 18 at the time, and on a ship we went to Somalo, and I went ashore with the lads, and we sampling the local booze, wine, brandy, trying it out to see, just trying to get a taste of the local culture. So anyway, I got pissed. Cut a long story short, and I thought I left my mates. I tried to get back to the boat. I knew where the boat was, and I tried to get back to the boat. And I was walking along this road, tired and drunk, and I thought, well, I'm never going to make it. And then I looked around. I saw a bicycle leaning against a wall. I thought, oh, just what I need. So I went and helped myself to this bike. I borrowed the bike and started riding towards the ship. And next thing I knew, I heard a whistle behind me blowing. I looked round, and to my amazement, there was a big fat gendarme on a bike with a whistle in his mouth, blowing the whistle, cycling down the road after me. I thought, oh God. So I started cycling fast about it. I was laughing my head off and drunk, going from side to side, and all the way down either side of the road were all these sailors, matlows, walking back to their ships, all laughing and cheering, and I was laughing my head off, and eventually I fell off the bike, and the gendarme came up and arrested me and took me, and then where he took me to was where Brick Wall was. I thought, I've seen that before. It was the police station, and I pitched the bike which was leaning against the police station or the gendarmerie.
So it was the copper's bike.
Yeah, so that's why they were chasing after me. So anyway, I thought, well, God, I'm in the shit now, and they put me in the cells for the night, and I thought, well, I'm really in trouble. But they came in at 6 o'clock in the morning to wake me up. And I was thinking all sorts of things. They're going to get the bloody British consul, the captain, and put me, on stoppage leave and other punishments. And to my surprise, they brought in a tray of croissants, orange juice, typical French bread, and they were laughing their heads off, slapping me on the back. They said it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. And I said, am I in trouble? Oh, no, we only locked you up to keep you safe because you were too drunk. And so they drove me back to the ship in a police car, and all my mates, all the crew were on the side, seeing me get out of the police car, thought I'd be in handcuffs, and they thought I was going to be in trouble. And I got out, and these policemen slapped me on the back and waving to the captain. And I said, oh, they just gave me a lift, sir.
So you managed to dodge that one,
I
didn't you?
didn't get it.
I'm going to start calling you Teflon, nothing sticks.
So that was good. That was like quite a nice story. I like that. Good
And
memory.
I heard another little story.
Oh.
That you spent some time in Hong Kong, did you? And you got welcomed into a Chinese family at a wedding.
My ship, the Newfoundland, the cruiser, went into Hong Kong for a refit. I think it's about 3 months, something like that, or more. And I made some friends, Chinese friends, as you do, and they got to know them, and they invited me to one of their family, the funeral of one of their family members. So I said, yeah, I'll come along, and we were at the funeral, and they were burning incense and joss sticks and all sorts of things, and the incense made my eyes water, and they looked at me and they thought I was crying. And they slapped their arms. Oh, poor, they thought I was wonderful because I was crying for their relative. But I wasn't. I didn't dare tell them that I wasn't crying. It was just the damned incense burners were hurt my eyes. But they adopted me as part of the family. So all the time I was there, I was invited up to their homes and treated quite royally. So I quite enjoyed that. But
thank God for the incense, eh?
oh yeah,
Got you some free meals and some hospitality.
Oh yeah. So I enjoyed that. That was quite good.
So there are 2 photos on the table today. The other one is this one.
Oh yes.
What's going on that one?
Well,
that looks like a very young version.
A younger version of me in short shorts.
Who likes short shorts?
Well, what's happening there is we're carrying out a replenishment at sea, or RAS, where an RFA tanker steers a steady course and speed, and we come up alongside. We don't get in too close because of the pressure areas from the screws and the bows. We come up about 50 meters off, I would say, on the beam, and then gradually close in, and then we pass a heaving line over, and then attach that to the hose and set up a jack stay, pull the hose over, and fuel the ship. So my captain had a very sensible attitude. Instead of him doing it all the time, he would get whoever was on watch to do it. But I was also on watch on that day, so it was my job to take it in to do the RAS. So obviously he was keeping an eagle eye on me, but so we just close into about I suppose 20 meters off, and then pass the lines across, and then they pump the fuel into us. So that's how they supply warships at sea. The Royal Fleet Auxiliary ships, which aren't warships, they're manned by merchant seamen, but are chartered by the Ministry of Defence, the Admiralty, to supply warships at sea. The Americans don't do it the same way. They have their supply ships are manned by US Navy personnel,
Right.
but we don't, because it makes sense really, because why train a sailor up to operate sonars and radars and missiles, and then stick him on a supply ship where he's just passing hose pipes across? So it makes more sense to have somebody else doing it who's not trained in those skills.
Yeah. So what are you actually doing? Who are you speaking to on the radio? The person on the helm of your boat?
Who I'm talking to there is the wheelhouse. And the wheelhouse of the warship is down below the waterline. For obviously, if the ship gets hit, you don't want the wheelhouse wiped out. It's down below the waterline.
Right.
So I talk to them over the intercom, and I give them wheel orders and engine orders. So start the 5, slow ahead starboard, slow ahead port. Those kind of orders are passed through that intercom down to the wheelhouse down below. Then in the wheelhouse, the coxswain operates the telegraph, which then sends a signal to the engine room to control the engines for whatever I order. What you can order the revolutions that you want, what speed, whether you want it full ahead, half ahead, half astern, or whatever, slow astern rather, and so on.
So the wheelhouse isn't the bridge then, is it?
No, the wheelhouse is down below the waterline. I'm on the bridge there.
So you're on the wing of the bridge there.
Exactly
Right.
Exactly the right word. It's the bridge wing I'm on.
Right.
So the bridge is just here. I'm sitting out on the bridge wing, where I can see, get a better view of RFA and judge my approach in.
Right. I'll tell you what, them shorts are hanging on by a wing, aren't they? And a prayer.
Well, I could get away with it then because I was just a youngster, but I'd look pretty silly in them now, wouldn't I?
I think you'd have to tuck your nuts into your socks.
It normally does that.
What do you think I wear long johns for?
Show off. At least you get a free wash of them every time you got toilet.
Jack with the ball sack case.
Well,
Sorry,
well,
I'm not supposed
Terry,
to say.
it's a pity you're going to be bumbling off because we all love you on J Pontoon, and you should be staying here because you're really good company. You keep us all amused, and we don't want you to sail away.
If I was a millionaire, I'd stay, but unfortunately, it's not feasible.
Yeah, you've got to bumble off, I suppose, and do your bumbling thing.
Yeah. What are your plans then? I'm bumbling off. You've bought a boat. What are you doing with it?
This boat, well, my good friend Dave, who's the expert sailor, as you know, he takes me out and he comes out with me and gives me lessons to improve my skills. I've got another friend, Gary and his wife, who want to come with me. I've been sailing with them before on previous boats I've had, and this boat, they come sailing with me, and I can go on their boat. They're lovely people, and they want to travel with me in this boat across to Cherbourg and the Channel Islands soon. So I've got the job of preparing the passage plan, and once that's done, I might get Dave to cast his expert eye over it, make sure I've done it right, and then we'll be off to go to the Channel Islands and Cherbourg.
Very nice, very nice indeed.
And this is an ideal place anyway, because quite often I sail down the Jurassic Coast, which is on our doorstep, which a lot of people pay thousands of pounds to come and see.
Yeah.
And I sit on a boat here and I can just sail down the Jurassic Coast with friends and anchor in one of the bays and have a barbecue or something.
I went past that place that's like the Wizard. What is it? Dumbledore.
Durdledore.
I know it was something like that.
Durdledore.
I was looking for the wand, but I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Right. Last 30 seconds. What do you want to say? If you can say anything to anybody, what is it?
Buy a boat, live on the sea, where there's lovely boating communities, the most fantastic community going. This community like this don't exist in many places these days, but a marina community of liveaboard boaters is the way forward. During the lockdowns, we lived on board and looked after each other. It's a good way of life. It's fresh air, it's healthy, good exercise, and we meet all sorts of interesting people like you, Terry, and we'd like you to come back again.
I wouldn't go as far as interested, but we'll see.
Well, you are a very interesting person.
Right.
Nice person to know.
Well, I think that about concludes it.
All right then, Terry.
So yeah, thank you very much, Jack, and thank you for the books. I will see if there are links to them for sale somewhere and put them in the description if anybody wants.
Well, I can send the links over to you.
Yeah, so we'll do that and we'll stick them in the description and see if anybody can wants to buy your books and learn the proper way of doing it.
Of astro navigation, as I said, that's the final thing I want to say, is don't try to sail the Atlantic or anywhere out of sight of land unless you are proficient in astro navigation, and of course you have a sextant, because it's no good knowing about astro navigation unless you've got a sextant.
I've not had sextant in years.
No, it's a sextant.
Oh, right, sorry. Right, and on that note, thank you very much, Jack.
Hey, thank you, Terry. Goodbye.
And that was Jack. Not a bad lad, is he? What a guy. So, yeah. If you are interested in astro navigation and want to buy his books, I'll link them in the description below. supposed to be setting off yesterday. However, the wind was in the wrong direction and quite strong overnight, so it would have made for a bad anchorage situation. Setting off today, however, it is flat calm with not a drop of wind, and I don't trust my engine. So I think I might just go out to the mooring buoy and wait for some wind to fill in. I can't afford to stay in the marina. Yeah, that was this week. I've done some fixing of the boat. Next week will be me sailing or doing something that it will not be sitting around talking nonsense to a camera. Well, it will be sitting around talking nonsense to a camera, but on a boat that's moving, hopefully. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching. Sayonara.